Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to fundamentally rethink the daily grind today. Seriously, if you've ever felt completely burned out, exhausted by the endless pursuit of success, or maybe just kind of quietly unfulfilled by your day-to-day routine, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're taking a fascinating journey into a real paradigm shift about human existence, work, and wealth. We're going to strip away all the noise and look at the absolute essence of why we do what we do. Okay, let's dive into this. It's the ultimate question, isn't it? What is the essence of life? It's that thought that keeps us up at night when we're staring at the ceiling, wondering if all the emails, the long commutes, and the endless to-do lists actually mean anything. It's a question that literally demands an answer if we want to live with any real clarity. You know, history's greatest minds have been taking swings at this for millennia. Think about it. Back in 400 BCE, Plato looked up seeking out these grand, eternal truths. By 300 BCE, Epicurus was like, hey, it's all about maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. Jump ahead to 1250 CE, Thomas Aquinas tied it all to divine will. And then in the 20th century, Jean-Paul Sartre came along and told us existence is just a blank slate. We have to painfully create our own meaning. Now, these are brilliant, incredibly penetrating insights, but honestly, despite their absolute genius, they all somewhat missed a very literal physical reality sitting right in front of them. To see exactly what they missed, we have to look at our modern answer to the meaning of life. Today, we're constantly told, just find your happiness or follow your passion. But think about this for a second. Even a thief feels joy in stealing, right? A serial killer might follow a passion with terrifying clarity. Pure individualistic self-gratification totally collapses the moment you put it under any sort of ethical scrutiny. If the essence of life is really just about getting whatever you want, the whole system falls apart. Which brings us to the absolute core realization of our explainer today. We are not solitary minds floating in abstraction. We are the members of a species. We survive solely because other human beings choose to give a portion of their finite lives, their irreplaceable time on Earth, to produce the goods and services that we need. Life is time, and thousands of strangers are spending theirs to keep you alive. To put that into perspective, just think about the number 1,000. That represents the absolute minimum number of distinct products you're going to use in your lifetime. From the farmers who actually grew the wheat for your breakfast, to the factory workers who stitched your clothes together, to the engineers who built the roads you drive on every single day. Before you even walked out the door this morning, you were sustained by an invisible web of thousands of hands. Understanding that invisible web completely shatters how we look at our jobs. So let's move into section 1, the true value of work, and reframe our cultural dread of Mondays and that whole modern phenomenon of quiet quitting. And this brilliantly illustrates the divide in how we approach our careers. On the left side, we have the self-centered view. This is where we're always calculating, what am I getting out of this? We chase the salary, the prestige, and when we don't feel like we're getting enough, we completely disengage. We quiet quit. But over on the right is the contribution view. This is treating humanity like a giant, living, cooperative organism. You aren't working just to extract a paycheck, you're participating effortlessly in the survival of your species. The financial reward just becomes a byproduct, not the main objective. Think about it. If literally everyone on Earth only did what was personally fun or gratifying, who would collect the garbage? Who would clean the hospitals? Society would just collapse. The true dignity of labor doesn't come from how much fun you're having or how glamorous your job title is. It comes from the necessity of the contribution. We do what must be done so others can live, just as they are doing for us. When you actually make this mental shift from extraction to contribution, the psychological results are pretty much immediate. First off, your anxiety diminishes. You finally stop tying your self-worth to a promotion or social validation. Second, your efficiency increases. You start focusing on what genuinely needs to be done rather than just competing for prestige. And finally, true fulfillment is unlocked. Work stops being this endless personal struggle and transforms into a real expression of your connection to humanity. Now, this radically changes how we view folks outside the traditional workforce. Unpaid labor is an absolutely essential contribution. Homemakers raising the next generation, people caring for sick relatives, retirees sharing their wisdom, they are the invisible infrastructure of our society. The idea that only wage-earning labor counts, that's a complete myth. Contribution doesn't just retire because you hit a certain age. If work is fundamentally about contribution, then we have to completely overhaul our understanding of the most misunderstood aspect of modern life. That brings us to section 2, redefining money and wealth.
The crucial point to grasp here is this. Money is not an object of intrinsic value that you hoard just to prove you won at the game of life. It is simply a certificate of recognition. It's a symbolic token representing the effort, the skill, and the labor you've offered to society. When you have money, it should mathematically mean you have contributed that equivalent amount of value to humanity.
This ethical logic makes us look very, very differently at unearned wealth. I mean, we all agree stealing is wrong because the thief extracts value without contributing anything back, right? But extend that logic to things like winning the lottery, keeping a giant stack of lost cash you found, or receiving massive unchecked inheritances. If money is literally a certificate of contribution, acquiring wealth without personal effort actually bypasses fairness and undermines the whole cooperative system of humanity. Now, don't worry, this doesn't mean you must live in extreme austerity and never enjoy a vacation ever again. But true freedom is the wisdom to do what is right, not blind consumption, to accumulate way more than you could ever need and spend it on extravagances that serve absolutely no human purpose. That's a moral decision with real social consequences. Ethical living means taking your surplus wealth and replanting it like seeds for future generations, rather than just endlessly stockpiling it. So if we shouldn't hoard our surplus, we should just give it all away to charity, right? Well, let's explore Section 3, the ethics of giving, and challenge that assumption. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this quote from Steve Jobs back in 1985. He recognized that giving is incredibly difficult to do right. Giving must be strategic, not sentimental. Throwing money blindly at a problem just to silence your own guilt or to boost your public reputation is actually rooted in self-interest. It can mismanage funds, totally distort self-worth, and create toxic dependencies rather than driving any actual human progress. So how do we actually direct surplus capital ethically? Well, it means funding scientific research that lacks commercial backing, or genuinely empowering disadvantaged individuals. But it also means ethical investing, empowering new startups, or, hey, even just keeping capital in banks where it can be loaned out to build homes and businesses. What we absolutely must avoid is speculation, hoarding wealth in gold or empty real estate purely to drive up artificial prices. That just removes liquidity from the system and helps absolutely no one. Which brings us to a really fascinating concept for the future of our species, the high net essence individual, or HNEI. Instead of worshiping high net worth individuals based purely on the size of their bank accounts, the future belongs to those admired for their net positive impact. It's a simple formula: high contribution minus mindful consumption. True worth is measured by how much you elevate the collective, not by how much you extract from it. I want to leave you with this final, truly provocative thought. If you knew you only had exactly 1 year left to live, what would you contribute? If you truly internalized everything we've covered today, the answer isn't to just sit on a beach endlessly consuming wealth until the clock runs out. You would continue working, creating, and helping, because contributing value to the human network is literally the most meaningful use of the limited time we have. Think about how you can apply this to your own daily work. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.